on after this. So let's get going. Welcome everyone to this webinar on marketing data and advanced attribution modeling. I prepared 3 topics today, and we'll be going through them. I think that these prepared topics, they will take approximately 20 minutes, and then there will be 10 minutes for questions and discussions afterwards. And if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to ask them there in the chat. The easy questions I will take during the webinar and during the presentation. To make it interactive is the best way to make it interesting for you. And then the more complicated ones we'll tackle in the Q&A session toward the end. All right, and the first topic that we'll be looking at is to how to optimize the marketing budget with the help of attribution modeling and data integration. And in the second topic, we'll be covering a case from iProspect Hong Kong, how they automated the data pipelines, and also some tips for multi-touch attribution from real life. And yes, they're still doing business in Hong Kong, even though the news we are getting from there lately are maybe not the most pleasant. And I think there was one question. Yeah. All right. And the sign here behind me is good. It's the Aaron Levy, the founder of Box. It's a quote from him. All right. So how to optimize the marketing budget with attribution modeling and data integration. And the topic here is, or the problem is how to optimize the allocation of the marketing budget and marketing efforts. And this can be seen as a quantitative and a mathematical problem, a little bit similar to like portfolio allocation from the financial industry, where you have performance and expected performance, and then you need to allocate your investments optimally to get the best return on investment. And here the investment is of course both money and also efforts and focus. And we take a look at how to achieve this with data and multi-touch attribution modeling. And some of the problems we face is that the data is often siloed, so it becomes very difficult to form the whole view or get the full picture of what's happening. And also, of course, that all the touch points in the customer journey, they're maybe not given credit in the decision making typically. And here we can have challenges that for example, the impression data or the impressions that come early in the customer journeys and are more awareness type of channels, they maybe don't get the credit that they would deserve. Or affiliate channels or email channels are undervalued, and things like this. And the third challenge that we face is that the costs are not integrated, and integrating the cost data is quite important, because that way you can get a ROI, return on investment, for all your marketing channels, and that makes it possible to compare them. Only looking at like the number of conversions that a channel contributes with is not really meaningful, because it has to be put into perspective with how much you invested in that channel, and only then you can start allocating the budget better. Yeah, and here is a typical customer journey. So you have social media, video, maybe they're early working as awareness channels, and then you have paid search and email nurturing coming a little bit later, and then maybe organic search as the last steps, or can be direct also, and then sign up or in e-commerce a transaction or a form fill, and then you have the final data tracked in the CRM. And this is the case in e-commerce where you have the data in the CRM, where you have the confirmed sales, where the cancellations and returns are taken into account, and also in B2B where you have the qualification of the leads are being done in a CRM, then it becomes very important to take those into account also when allocating the marketing budget. And many times, depending on the company also, it can be that inside the company there can be many different groups or teams or entities looking at their own numbers, and then it becomes difficult to see the whole picture. So you can have agency looking at social media, video, like engagement figures, and paid search, optimizing for their own KPIs and so forth. So then to really like allocate the budget, it's important to get the helicopter view and understand how these different efforts are contributing to the bottom line revenue. Yeah, and many times the customer journeys, they can be very complex. Here we have some examples. So we have different customer channels going through different steps, and paid search, email, Facebook, organic search, and so forth. And also then what happens after the booking. We have been making a little bit like 3D visualizations of the customer journeys. So you have here in the middle, you have the conversions, and Google CPC compares. It's a Swiss price comparison site, and then you have different marketing channels here, and then you can compare them. For example, how they form, how they are in this whole customer journey network, and then you can visualize them like this. But many times these can be so complex, so it's impossible to visualize them and form the full picture of what's happening. Yeah. All right. And yeah, it's quite important to take into account all the channels. Many of the typical analytics tools, they are focused on the last click, which then doesn't give enough credit to the early awareness channels, which can be difficult when you want to expand and grow from the typical like low funnel channels. And here you have different channels by channel grouping, and here you have the customer journeys, so that they are separated by this arrow. So here you have three touch points, or four in this: SCA brand, and SCA brand, and then the last touch point is SEO, and you have two customer journeys with this much revenue, for example, with this customer journey. And then if you would only use a last click model, you would only give credit to the SEO in this case, and similar things here. So it's quite important to use a multi-touch model that gives credit to the early channels also when optimizing the marketing budget. And here are some example visualizations. So, and journey durations and the revenues also. And journey duration in days and on the customer journeys. It depends, of course, a lot on the business, how complex the customer journeys are. Every business and industry have their own customer journeys. Yeah, this is possible for it's possible for all dashboards to see the customer journey length. I can show you later how to do that also. Okay. And the third challenge was that the costs are not integrated, and of course the costs, they are tracked in many different marketing platforms. So then it's really important to put the performance into perspective. And here we have lots of data integration work to do, because many times the costs, as the campaign names come from the platforms, they can be spelled a little bit differently from what it is in the analytic tools and so on. And then this whole data pipeline process has to be automated. And then when the costs have been put together, then you get the ROAS, and these are data-driven attributed revenue figures and data-driven attributed ROAS figures, so that it becomes possible to compare the performance of the different channels. Here this Xaxis is performing best, but this of course depends a lot on the business and on the campaigns and so forth. Yeah, but then what one would want to do is to allocate more budget to this Xaxis campaign until the performance starts to decrease. All right. And then we jump to the second topic. iProspect Hong Kong. It's the world's leading performance agency, part of Dentsu Aegis network. And they work with Burberry, Adidas, General Motors, and the Hilton Group. And they wanted to automate the data flows and use this whole customer journey for the attribution. And the customer journeys, they were quite complex, so it was exactly this problem of how to allocate the conversion credits between these touch points. And here was how they were tackled before. So you had the conversions up until a form fill, which then contained, of course, also unqualified leads. So we had to connect it to the CRM data so that they could start optimizing for the real revenue and the qualified leads, so that the marketing spend got connected to the revenue, to the bottom line revenue. And then they could also visualize the customer journeys up until the final conversions here. And for that, we needed to create this unique identifier that was shared between the CRM and the analytics tools. And then we pull in the data from both of these tools. And we use the Markov model quite a lot for the attribution modeling. I have some videos on our blog where I compare the different data-driven attribution models, if you are more interested in the modeling topics. And then we connected the conversion data to the cost data, so that it became possible to have a ROAS and also a proposed budget in this case. Yeah. More question, yeah. Markov model, more on the Markov model. The Markov model, or a little bit, the Markov model calculates the probabilities that a user is going to move to the next step. I can share the video where I go through these data-driven attribution models after the webinar, because I will not have that. We will run out of time if I start going through the models now, very much in depth, or then we can take it towards the end. Also, yeah, I will share the video. Yeah, okay, and then you get a budget recommendation for all these channels. And then the third topic, how agencies and brands can benefit from automating reporting and multi-touch attribution. Yeah, the amount of data is of course increasing quite a lot, and the more the marketing channels increase, the more data there is in different formats from different APIs and so forth. So it becomes quite difficult to form the full picture easily and automatically. And if this data work is tackled manually with Excel and Google Sheets, then it becomes risky to make errors and so on. So it's quite important to automate all this work. And this is also challenging, of course, for performance marketers and data scientists. I come more from the data scientist part, and yes, it's of course true that most of the time is spent on data preparation and organizing the data. And this is always the case. And the exciting parts about running the models, those are the quick parts. Yeah, but there's quite many different options today. So there is quite many, close to 100 data pipeline integration providers. So this is a problem that has been recognized. Still, it's not always easy to find the best solutions for this. And yeah, what we recommend is to pull the data from all these sources into a data warehouse, and have the data as raw as possible, so that it becomes possible to rerun all the analysis later if there are some questions or hypotheses or seasonalities that one needs to look into. And then on that raw data, once it has been stored, then start doing the campaign renamings, currency conversions, data normalizations, and so on, and then store that data also, so that it's easy to do the analysis on that transformed and clean data. And then you can start analyzing the customer journeys and optimizing the budgets and campaigns and so forth. So there are quite many different steps in this process, but it's usually quite important to store the data and then transform it, clean it, join it with the CRM data, and then do the lightweight analysis based on that data. But then it's also possible to go back and redo the analysis with a little bit different parameters and so on. It depends, of course, a lot on how deep you want to go in the analysis. All right, it's a big. This whole topic it's a big topic. Here are some pointers on where to start, and the first thing is to of course automate all the data pipelines and work on these. And then it's important to use tools. And Excel works for a while, but very quickly it leads to errors and mistakes, and then lots of time is spent on fixing those mistakes and errors instead of doing the analysis and creating insights. And it's important to also remove the human factor from all these data preparation steps, because if it relies on someone having to remember to run something, then it's not going to work, because someone will be sick or forget to do it and so forth. And once the data is in place, then the next step is to start analyzing the customer journeys, and there it's good to use something else than a last click model. to really give credit also to the awareness channels and display campaigns and so on. And then depending of course on the business, but usually it's quite valuable to include the CRM data so that it becomes possible to optimize the marketing campaigns based on the real revenue, based on the confirmed sales, or if it's B2B, based on the qualified leads. Because in many businesses, a lead, if it has not been qualified, is maybe not so valuable, and some channels bring quite a lot of non-qualified leads, or sales that many times get cancelled and returns, and then it's important to identify these channels and take that into account before doing the attribution modeling. All right, I went a little bit over time. We have 7 minutes for questions and discussion. We can go deeper into the modeling topics if you are interested. Otherwise, we can go through some questions. So now, if you have questions, feel free to ask them or post them here in the chat. There are questions about going deeper into the model, and also attributing more classical channels like offline channels, TV, radio, print, and how to do this. Maybe I take this offline topic first, and we have mostly been focusing on, from the offline channels, we have mostly been focusing on TV attribution. There we, for example, do quite a lot of TV attribution modeling and cross-media optimizations for Emma Sleep, the competitor of Casper, for example. And what we are seeing there is that some of the search channels can become quite expensive, where the CPCs get very high, so that the big online channels performance starts to be challenging in those cases. Then TV can be a really good awareness channel, so that you can work as an upper funnel channel, which can have, when attributed correctly, can have an even higher ROI than Google and Bing, which are typically lower funnel channels. And there we do it in two different ways. One is that we take into account the past few days on TV investment, and then we measure how big effect that has on the usually on the brand search campaigns and the organic traffic, because the relationship between TV and brand search and organic is the strongest. And so that way we can measure how big effect on revenue TV has, and that way we can get a ROI for the TV. And regarding radio, there we are now working with some pilot customers to do the radio. Radio is a little bit more difficult topic because there is much more noise, and there's not such a direct relationship between the radio ad and the call to action, because people many times listen to radio in the car, and then they don't go to the website immediately. So here we have to take a little bit longer perspective and calculate how big effect it has on the awareness from a longer time perspective. And what we are doing here is that we're also A/B testing between cities, so that we can that way do a little bit more detailed, like uplift and the incrementality modeling. But the impact is of course here also biggest on the organic and brand campaigns, because that's how people use the internet today, that they remember a brand or a product and then they go to Google and search for it. So that behavior has to be taken into account. Yeah. And then there is a question on the fixed costs on Windsor. We usually recommend to take into account fixed costs, and these fixed costs can be it depends, of course, what you define as fixed cost, but can be, for example, for software for email campaigns, or salaries for salaries for SEO team, or agency fee for PPC management. And yes, these of course have to be taken into account, because they are not exactly fixed fixed costs. If there was no PPC management, or it was managed in-house, then these costs would not exist. And also with the email campaigns, we recommend to set fixed costs, and it's easy to upload these in the platform from a spreadsheet or a CSV file. And we recommend to add them because, for example, for an email campaign, if there are no fixed costs for it, it will appear as performing really well, but it has also the cost of unsubscribes. So if you look at, for example, email campaigns, and it has a really high ROI, then the conclusion and the recommendation is, of course, to increase the number of emails being sent. But that doesn't really work, because then there starts to be unsubscribes. So there has to be costs associated to that. And then it's usually up to the business to decide how much of a fixed cost do they want to assign to these things. But all the costs associated to a marketing channel and campaign, we usually recommend to add and take into account. Yeah. And more detailed questions. Working on a spend feed in Google Sheets, which will include channel grouping, source medium, and spend. And the question is if that would work better as a spend source, and group agency fees in channel grouping, but exclude them from source medium. Yeah, that would be possible. Yeah. Usually we match the costs to the performance based on source medium, and based on channel grouping, and based on campaign name, and so forth. But usually these manual costs, we go only down to campaign level. But yeah, that would work if it's identified based on that level. I can send more examples of that later. And let's see if there is one. Yeah. Question is, how does the browser limitations for third-party cookies influence the attribution model? Yeah, and this is a topic that has especially lately been coming up a lot. we are in a good position in that sense that we rely on first-party cookies, so we don't use third-party cookies, and I think third-party cookies are now the ones that are the most in trouble lately. So we are in a really good position that way, but it is creating some uncertainty, and also what we are seeing is that the amount of direct traffic is increasing quite a lot, but for many advertisers because of many reasons. We are not seeing so big impact yet, but it is this in the next, I think, 6 months. These things will have an impact, but it's a little bit uncertain where it's going to go yet. I would say I think everyone is following this quite closely at the moment. And what's a little bit funny here is that Apple is pretending to be this white knight for privacy, but what Apple is actually doing is that they are with ITP, and they are really benefiting Google and Facebook, because Google and Facebook they are the ones who can track users without cookies. So it's a little bit it's a little bit contradictory there, and yeah, but we mostly pull in the data from existing analytics tools, so we are not so much affected from this, which actually makes the whole setup of our attribution platform quite easy. All right, and then regarding the attribution models, I will send more information about the data, the algorithms, and so forth. I will send that information and video later, so that everyone can check them out, because that gets very theoretical quickly. All right. Hey, we're a little bit over time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We'll be arranging these once or twice per month with different topics. So if you have topics that you want to hear about, just let us know, and we'll be tackling them in the next webinars. Thank you so much, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye bye.